Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be upon you and the mercy of Allah and His grace. Hello and welcome once again to Understanding Islam, your show that explores the faith. Praise be to Allah, Lord of the worlds, and peace and blessing be upon His last messenger, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, His companions, and those who follow the right path. Dear brothers and sisters, life is full of events and situations of all kind, good and bad. We all face tests, hardships, and trials in life, and they differ from one person to another, be it physical, emotional, psychological, economical, or otherwise, but we all face them. There are many people who are particularly tested with lacking some of the abilities that most others enjoy, those with special needs. But just what qualifies as special needs? What are the considerations for them and their rights? How does Islam regard them, and what allowances are they afforded? These are some of the topics we will be discussing in today's episode. Historically, people with special needs were treated harshly or inhumanely across most parts of the world. Prior to the 1700s, the accepted belief was in most countries that the disease or ill fortune is a sign of having fallen from spiritual favor. People with disabilities were ejected from hospitals and shelters for the poor. There was an accepted belief in many countries that mentally ill people were possessed by the devil or evil spirits. As a result, they were routinely whipped, tortured, and burned at the stake. Moving into the 1800s and the early 1900s, special needs cases were considered genetically defective and inferior, and they were hidden away or displayed as freaks. Between 1930 and 1940, they were accused of polluting the human race and thus institutionalized, sterilized, and exterminated. These people did nothing wrong to deserve such inhumane treatment. Their difficulties were due to genetic or environment factors. From the 1970s, people with special needs were finally considered independent and self-determined, and they started having their own independent living and civil rights. This is the general history of the treatment of special needs. However, this was never the case with Islam. Since the very beginning of the faith, special care and regard was given to those with special needs. If we look at the Holy Quran, we find a clear example of this positive and constructive care. There was a well-known incident when the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ frowned in the face of a blind man. His name was Abdullah bin Maktoum radiallahu anh, who came to ask the Messenger ﷺ a question about a matter that bothered him, when the Messenger ﷺ was busy discussing another matter with other people. So the Messenger ﷺ frowned in his face. On the face of it, it seems like the Messenger ﷺ did nothing wrong, as he was busy with something very important, and the blind man didn't see nor perceive his frowning face. So it seems there was no harm done. Yet Allah the Almighty reproached His Messenger for his behavior and recorded this incident in the Holy Quran as a reminder to all Muslims. Allah the Almighty said, "He frowned and turned away when the blind man came to him. And what makes you realize whether he would possibly try to better himself, or that he would constantly remember and the reminding would benefit him?" Surah Abasa 80, verses 1 to 4. Afterward, the Prophet ﷺ used to meet that blind man with a welcoming and smiling face, bring him closer, and spread his cloth on the ground for the blind man to sit on, and say to him, "Welcome to a man for whom my Lord has reproached me." This example of this blind man was honored by this gentle reproof and immortalized by its mentioning in the Holy Quran. Throughout history, people with special needs were called all kinds of names, many of which are unpleasant or hurtful. One of the most beautiful names for those people with special needs is Ashab al-A'dhar, or those having excuses. This term is used throughout the Islamic history to refer to them in discussions, books, and literature. Islam also gives them hope and support and increases their self-esteem by pointing out that these disabilities do not undermine their personalities or achievements. As Allah the Almighty says, For indeed, it is not the eyes that go blind, but it is the hearts which are within the bosoms that go blind. Surah Al-Hajj 22, verses 46. The blindness referred to in this verse is a parable and has been interpreted and can be interpreted more generally to cover all special needs. The Messenger ﷺ also promised them great rewards for their struggle and patience. He ﷺ said, Allah the Almighty said, I will reward the one whose two dear things, that is his eyes, were taken away from him with paradise. The pre-Islamic society used to boycott people with special needs, isolate them and prevent them from leading normal lives. Allah the Almighty guided Muslims to incorporate them and include those excluded people in the society and community and not leave them in isolation, lest they fall prey to despair and psychological ailment. They should be welcomed to the open society and be dealt with in the kindest way. Before Islam, some people used to prevent the lame, the blind, and the infirm from sharing food with them because they deemed them disgusting. On this, Allah the Exalted revealed a verse stating that the rule is the same for them as for any other person. Allah the Almighty said, no blame is there upon the blind, nor any blame upon the lame, nor any blame upon the sick, nor on yourselves if you eat from your houses, or the houses of your fathers, or the houses of your mothers, or the houses of your brothers, or the houses of your sisters, or the houses of your father's brothers, or the houses of your father's sisters, or the houses of your mother's brothers, or the houses of your mother's sisters, or the houses that thereof you hold the key to, or from the house of a friend. No sin shall it be for you, whether you eat together or apart. Surah An-Nur 24, verse 61. They are people just like us, having the same rights as us. They are not to be judged by their appearances, because it does not make a difference in the sight of Allah. As the Messenger ﷺ said, Allah looks at neither your appearances nor your wealth. Rather, He looks at your hearts and your deeds. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ practiced this to the utmost. He ﷺ appointed Ibn Maktoum as a mu'adhin, or caller for salah times, though he was blind. The Messenger ﷺ also appointed him as his successor in Medina when he traveled out. This is a remarkable example of inclusion that shows how people with disabilities are looked upon and treated in Islam. Those excused people are an integral part of the society that are honored, respected, and charged with great responsibilities. In another example of inclusion, the Messenger ﷺ held Julaybib radiallahu anh to marry when nobody wished to let their daughter marry him because he was poor and had unpleasant physical deformities. In another instance, the Messenger ﷺ said about him, "This man is of me and I am of him." This is another powerful example from the practices of the Messenger ﷺ to accept people as they are, regardless of their physical appearance or shortcoming. The Prophet of Islam ﷺ prayed for people with special needs and taught us to pray for them to be patient and to encourage them to endure afflictions. The Messenger ﷺ also answered their request for him to pray for them, as was narrated in many hadith. People with special needs have full rights, as well as some obligations. Their money or properties are protected, and no one is allowed to exploit them. As for rewards and benefits, there is no difference in this regard between them and anyone else. Allah the Almighty said, "There is no restriction on the blind, nor is there restriction on the lame, nor is there restriction on the sick, and whoever obeys Allah and His Messenger, He will cause him to enter gardens." Surah Al-Fath 48, verse 17. Islam also protected people with special needs from mockery and psychological abuse, as we will see after this short break. Remember to email us on understandingislam@dmi.ae. See you soon. Welcome back to Understanding Islam. Dear viewers, throughout history and in many parts of the world, people with special needs were taken as objects of mockery, amusement, or fun. However, the Islamic law came to forbid ridiculing all people in general and those afflicted in particular. Allah the Almighty stressed the prohibition of mockery, deriding, and insults. Allah the Almighty said, O ye who believe, let not a folk dear